Welcome to the Resilience Breakthrough Podcast.
Episode 4. This time around, we are talking about a topic that I think is particularly close to your heart, Christian: street resilience.
Yeah, I love street resilience. You know, Dave, that's my passion. You know, we've had these 4 sources of resilience out for several years. And, people always ask me, if you had to pick a favorite one, which is it? And I shouldn't say this. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this on the podcast, but I got to be honest. If I'm with a friend, I'm telling them that street is my favorite.
Ooh, picking a favorite source of resilience has got to be a little bit like picking a favorite child. Like, it's just taboo. You're not supposed to do that, Christian.
In the book, I define street resilience as you take the pain of disrespect, social inequality, and even past mistakes and use it as fuel to propel you forward. And I think, all of us can relate to these power struggles where someone is one up and someone's one down in a relationship. And that tends to motivate people when they're one down. That is the fuel source we can all tap into.
That's right. And it's interesting. We were talking with Miranda kind of in the pre-show, and we, one of these topics came up of the power of words. And I hadn't really thought of street resilience through that filter before, and I think she's going to get into it a little bit more. But we have to remember the words we say to each other have a lot of power. A lot more power than maybe we realize. Sometimes we're saying something, we don't even mean it. Maybe we're feeling insecure, or maybe we're just frustrated, but we'll say something to another human being and that will stick with them for years sometimes. And they'll have a hard time reconciling it, and it will shape their identity. We have a lot of power over each other, and I don't know that we always wield it responsibly.
The big story I tell all the time, Dave, is when, that professor in college said to me, Christian, if you can get a college degree with a 6th grade math level, 7th grade reading writing level, my degree's worth less.
Yeah. Ooh, that is.
And
just
that was a
brutal.
long walk home. I was enraged.
Yeah. Dude, that's rough. And, but why were you able to use that as a reason to write a book and start a company? But, I'll be honest with you. Me, like I've allowed those kinds of labels to essentially shape my identity. Like, I've listened to those people, and it sounds like what you're doing is not listening to them and saying, you know what, you said that about me, that's not true, and I'm going to use the anger that I feel as a reason to prove that it's not true. Whereas I got to be honest with you, Christian, over the course of my own life, I've allowed those labels to shape my identity, and I'm just now through, frankly, mindfulness meditation, stripping away the layers of programming that have been inserted into my own brain. So what's the difference between somebody who turns on street resilience and somebody who allows those powerful words that someone says to them to shape their identity for years or decades?
Even if you've already predetermined you're going to use it as a fuel source, you're going to use it as a reason to grind on, to prove people wrong, that doesn't lessen the emotional abuse, the pain, the hurt. And I'll be really frank with you, my own life, similar to you, there's a lot of my life, I didn't know what to do when, I had low self-esteem, I had anger. I think a lot of my acting out behaviors in my youth came from not knowing how to create a productive outcome with those negative emotions. This is why I get so passionate about this, why I wrote the book is, to me, this is a social justice issue, is you have a huge advantage when you're aware of exactly what to do when another human being puts you down, disrespects you. And so it's like with so many things in this world, it's access to the knowledge, the experience practicing it, it's information. And as I do this work across this country in the last few months, I'll go into communities and we'll teach children, when someone's bullying you, putting you down, attacking you, you can use this as a reason to become greater, to work harder, to fight back stronger. But it's an awareness thing. It's funny, as I teach this to kids, adults will pull me aside all the time, just like what you were saying, Dave, and they'll go, I'm in my 30s, 40s.
I didn't even know I could do that.
Ever showed me what to do with this.
It's so true. And, Christian, it's great because we actually, you mentioned earlier social justice, and I think this is one of the great social justice issues because, we know that there are whole classes of people who are implicitly or explicitly told that they are less than. And we have, as our guest today, one of the great social justice warriors of our time, Miranda Beard. Welcome to the show.
Well, I am delighted to be here. Hello, I should say, to both you, Dave, and Christian. And Christian, you know I'm one of your biggest fans, so you know you got a fan group following, and I'm one of them.
Well, hey, that's an honor coming from you. I appreciate that.
Uh-huh. I'm
That goes
glad to
both
be on
ways.
the podcast. Absolutely. I'm glad to be on the podcast with the both of you today.
Well,
And I
absolutely.
hope whatever we share will be helpful to the people that are listening in.
Yeah, and you know, as I mentioned before, Miranda, in the pre-show, you were talking about the power of words, and I had honestly, I got to be honest with you, I've never thought of street resilience through that frame before, as really going back to the words that we say to each other. And now it was funny how we got to that because you were recently in a freaking tornado, Miranda. Are you okay?
I am fine. I am fine, but it's a scary moment when this storm moved through the area, and I saw it coming. I could hear the thunder, saw the lightning. The alarms were going off all over the place. You know, they were tracking the storm on the weathercast, and it was right in my back door, literally.
Okay,
And
it was right
I
on
remember,
your back door. And what was your response to having a tornado in your back door?
And this was in
now some
Mississippi,
people.
right? This is Mississippi. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And just imagine seeing all of this, and your human nature is okay. Take cover, get in the center of your house somewhere, so that when this thing hits, because we were in the direct path of it. I believe in the power of words. I'm serious about this. So I spoke to this thing and said, "No, not today. You're not going to tear up my community. Not today."
Yeah,
And when I went back to the television to see the path of the storm, the thing had shifted over, okay, bypassing us. Sure, we got some of the wind and some of the rain, but not the deadly destruction. But initially, we were in the path of it.
well, I have to say,
I believe. Go ahead.
go ahead. Tell us what do you believe? I mean, what do you believe that made you go outside and confront a freaking tornado? Please tell us, Miranda.
Well, my thanks for number one, and the fact that I believe in the power of words. See, death and life is in the power of our mouth or our tongue. See, I can speak life to you, or I can speak death to you.
Whoa!
It is a choice.
Wow!
So I made a choice to speak to this thing and say, look, not today. You're not coming here today. You're not going to cause destruction here today. So even when I'm dealing with children or leaders or education leaders dealing with children, I have to remind them what you say to a child can have a major impact. It could push them forward to cause them to be resilient, or it could scar them for life where they never feel like they can make a move to do anything in life.
It's
So we have to watch what we
true.
say.
It's so true. And the hard thing about that is words fly out of our mouths without, sometimes, have you ever had that feeling like a word just flew out of your mouth and you were like, oh, whoops, I wish I could take that back, but I can't.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Well, you're absolutely right, because what's in you will come out. Okay?
So if you don't want bad words that you don't mean to say to come out of your mouth, watch what you're putting in your brain. Is that what you're saying?
Come on. Yes, Dave, you just hit it right on the head.
Wow.
What you feed yourself through your ear gate, your eye gate, will get internalized and then eventually come out. Okay? That's why children tend to, little children. I don't know if the two of you have children. Well, I know Christian has children, but I don't know about you, Dave.
Oh, I have children. I like to refer to them as little devils, but, sure, we can call them children.
No, don't say that. Don't say that.
They're wonderful children. They're not hearing this,
You
okay?
take those labels off those kids, man.
My poor children.
Now,
The therapy bills
when
alone.
you label them to be devils, guess what they're going to do, Dave? They're going to act like the devil.
Well, you know what?
okay?
I've always wanted two little devils for children. So, no, my kids are the
Well,
best. If they're listening to this, you're the best.
Oh, absolutely. And I know you constantly tell them that. See, that's why some children excel so much quicker than others, because they're getting those words of affirmation to help them move out of negative circumstances that most people would look at their lives and say, oh, they're not going to make it. See, I was one of those kids.
You were
children.
told you're not going to make it?
That's exactly right. Because of where I live, my zip code dictated whether I was going to be successful or not in some people's minds. My race was also a possible factor, in all of that.
Your race.
Then my gender.
Yeah. Your zip code, your race, your gender.
Yeah. My socioeconomic status. My parents were working class poor folks. Okay? They worked in order to put a roof over our head and food on the table. So because they worked so hard, they didn't necessarily have the resources or the means to provide tutors for me, or to give me some of the extra things that I needed exposure to in order to excel at a faster rate. It's not that I was stupid or dumb, okay? Not at all. It's just that I lacked exposure to certain things to help me to excel to the next level. And sometimes because they were so busy working, I didn't get those words of affirmation to tell me, Miranda, you can be and do what you are born to do, you're gifted to do, all of those things.
So what did you get?
I didn't get that.
What did you get in terms of words, in terms of, people painting your future? What kind of things did people tell you were in your future?
Well, I didn't feel like I had a future, Dave and Christian, because when you have low self-esteem as a child, you don't feel like you have self-worth, then there's no self-motivation. See, school put me in another environment to help pull out some of the things that were on the inside of me that I would have dreams about, but I didn't know how I could accomplish those things. So sometimes people can see your gifts more than you can see them, and will give you those words of affirmation to help you push forward or be resilient, or as you talked about street resilience, to use the negative words that have been spoken over you as a way of motivating you to say, well, they say I can't do this, but somebody else told me I can. So I have a choice here as an individual to decide, am I going to believe those that said I can't, or am I going to make the choice to accept those words that say that I can? It's a choice. Life is choice driven, but some children may not understand that or know that. It is choice driven. We have a choice. But as little children, sometimes we don't understand or don't know that, because we see teachers, we see our parents in positions of authority. So whatever they tell us, that's what we believe.
That is what we believe.
So I started out believing I can't do anything. I can't be anything. But as I got older and got out of my environment, I began to see and hear things from a different perspective. And that motivated me to want to pursue what I could potentially be in life.
Now,
but initially it didn't start out that way.
I was going to say, didn't you have a dream about where you would end up? I recall from our conversations that you actually had a literal dream. I mean, we could say, I have a dream, but you actually had a dream. No, not like a figurative dream, like an actual dream.
An actual dream. See, I just said I didn't have self-esteem, self-motivation, or self-worth. At times, I felt darkness so thick that I felt like I could cut it with a knife. When you are born in a certain area of a community and people don't feel like anything good can come out of the community, you don't see that you have something that you could possibly use to be successful in life. So here I am with this masculine sounding voice. I wanted to sound like all the other girls in the community. I didn't sound like everybody else. But I wanted to.
For the record, Miranda, you have a freaking beautiful voice. You have an incredible voice. I mean, for the record, come on. Your voice.
There's power in that voice, David. There's power.
There is.
I initially didn't see it that way, because when I would use my voice, people would laugh at me. They would bully me. So I didn't see it as something useful In fact, at times I saw it as a curse. Those words were powerful enough and had such an impact on me that a lot of times I wouldn't say anything.
You would.
But going back to the dream,
Wow.
I had a dream that I would stand before thousands and thousands of people at 12 years old. I saw this in a dream. And my thought was, how in the world can something like this happen? And I didn't give up on it, although I had no idea how this was going to take place.
Mm.
I saw myself doing that.
Mm.
And when I became president of the National School Boards Association in 2016, when I was doing the inaugural speech, and I stood on that stage, standing there, about 8,000 people in the audience, I suddenly realized the dream I had at 12 years old was manifested at that moment. And talk about motivation, that really motivated me at that point. I said, oh my goodness, this dream I had at 12, all of a sudden I saw this thing come to pass right before my eyes.
Wow.
See, it's different when you're sitting on a set speaking to a camera. You cannot see your audience.
So even
You
when you were a
cannot communicate
broadcaster,
with your audience.
like even when you were an anchor at that station and you were a broadcaster speaking to a really big audience, you still did not feel like your dream had been fulfilled.
Absolutely not. No, not at all.
Wow. But it was that moment when you took the stage in front of the National School Board Association that you felt the dream was fulfilled.
That's it. School board leaders, educators from all across the United States of America.
I need to go back and listen to that speech, but I'd like to know a little bit of what was the emphasis of that speech?
The emphasis was every child has value. The mustard seed as an example. And I've shared that in my speech and when I go and I speak to groups across the country. In that seed, mustard seed is potential. The potential is a tree that can grow 20 feet tall. So when I look at little children, as I think about my own life, I didn't see my potential, but I needed help to water that potential, to provide me nourishment for that potential, to bring out what was on the inside of me to the surface for it to be fulfilled. See, a seed, if you keep the seed on the surface and never plant it in the right soil and give it the nutrients and the vitamins and the water that it needs, it will always remain a seed. And the potential will never be realized. See, I say a lot to people oftentimes, my objective in life now is to die empty. That means everything that I was born to do, my intention is to fulfill it before I leave this earth. I will not take my potential of any kind to the graveyard where it has no value there. I want people to realize Miranda Beard's potential while I'm still alive on this earth, to have an impact. See, our gifts are not for us anyway. Our gifts are really for other people. That's why I admire Christian, I admire you, because you're using your gifts and your talents and your abilities to serve other people. That's really what this is all about. Wow. And so as I was talking to leaders, I was trying to hold them accountable, letting them know it's not about us. It's really about using our gifts, talents, and abilities to serve others, to bring out the potential that's on the inside of them. My existence is for a reason. And that's what I try to emphasize with parents and teachers and educators, helping children to see and understand that they were born here with something very important that they are to do in life. That's why math is important. That's why English is important. For example, if I asked a child who says, I want to be an architect one day, I want to be an engineer, but they hate math. Now, we all know if you're going to be great at this, you've got to learn math, right? You should learn math in order to go to the next level. Why not tell that child, well, I know you can do this. You will be a great architect one day or engineer, but you know what, Johnny? You've got to learn how to do math. All of a sudden, it shifts my thinking. See, there's got to be a mental shift, a shift in the way some children have thought about things in life, or even their parents have thought about things. Some things are generational, Dave and Christian. Some things have been passed on for generation after generation after generation. And somebody has to help break the cycle of some of this mental conditioning that has told some groups of people that they're less than, or they can't do, or can't have, simply because of the way you look, or where you came from, or your gender. You cannot do certain things. And see, for me, after I was able to get that affirmation later in life, that motivated me to say, I don't care what anybody else says. If I feel this is something I need to do, I am unstoppable. Codes were put in place to segregate or put people in certain categories to make sure they get or don't get certain things. You see what I'm saying? Or I label you, oh yeah, she's this or he's that, and they can't do this. Those codes do those kinds of things to keep us separated. We're all part of a human race. There's resources out here for everybody.
Yeah,
Okay?
There's enough for all. It's not a zero-sum game. It's there. The more people we have who are thinking and out there creating and striving, the more value they create for all of us. There's not just one pie, and we've got to make sure there's enough pie for this person or that person. Like, we're all out here making the pie bigger every day. I think that's one of the biggest false things that we've been taught as a human race, is that there's not enough for everybody. The more people who are successful, the more they feed their communities, and the more that we all have.
And you know what? You drive in certain communities, and I've often thought this, and do my research and all of this. You see, some communities look like they're thriving. They're prosperous. Mm-hmm. Their homes look nice. Their streets look nice. Then you go to other communities, and it's like, what happened? Why are these individuals not thriving and successful? Why are their communities, they look like they're broken? Well, guess what? If people are not investing in their communities and they're taking their monies and their resources to other places, then how can you build up a community? I said, Dave, when you and I were talking the other day, you could take $1 and change it over 12 times in a community, and you will see the effects of all of that before it leaves the community.
So if you could
but you got to socialize children to understand that.
Yeah. So Miranda, if you could wave a magic wand and instill one single belief in every community across the entire world to have the biggest impact, what would that one idea be that you would implant in intergenerational families?
Every community, I don't care whether it be Black, Latino, white, whatever the community, invest in your community. Invest in your children as the future that will keep those communities thriving. Build businesses in those communities. And in other words, invest in those communities, invest in the education, providing the resources, find equitable ways to create wealth in community. And then share. We can share.
Are we properly positioning our children to be able to become business owners? I mean, we talk about social emotional learning, and obviously that's very important, but I don't know that we're teaching kids how to become entrepreneurs, how to start businesses. I mean, is that something we should be teaching kids in these communities?
And financial literacy. Financial literacy is a huge thing too. It's interesting. I've been talking lately with quite a few people in several school districts that just a lot of emphasis isn't being put on the reality of a capitalistic society. Capitalism is dog eat dog. And are we spending enough time showing children this is how economics work, in America? And I know we're talking about it's more global as well, but do kids know how to deal with economics? I'm 50 years old. I've only learned in the last 2 years things about all kinds of things about investment and dividends and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, I'm 50 years old. I'm just learning about this stuff, figuring this stuff out. And, with the resources I have and being an entrepreneur for 20 years, I barely understand some of this stuff. What are the odds that many of these kids across this country have access to this financial literacy stuff. And so, anyways, it's something I'm passionate about. And we're looking at doing more work in that area. But it's just there's a whole literacy around economics that our schools are not teaching.
Well, what are poor children taught? Get an education. You can get out of poverty. Go to college. That's your ticket out. But they're not taught how to take what they have learned and invest in the communities that they came from. They're not taught that. They're taught, the things they need to know as far as math and English and all of that, but they don't know how to take a dollar and invest that dollar to compound it. They don't know, many of them don't know how to invest that way. I wasted a lot of money on things I really didn't need.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas I could have taken those dollars and would have been probably by now a millionaire. I know I would have been had I known how to invest what I was earning in the right way and not put it in some other things that may have made other people wealthy, but didn't help me.
Yeah.
You see, I'm not, we're not necessarily teaching them how to invest in the stock market or invest in companies or, in fact, build your own company. There are some communities that teach their children early on. They start looking at their gifts, what they're gifted to do. And they may like doctoring on a doll, for example, pretending to be a doctor or a nurse. Well, guess what these parents will tell those children? Not only will you be a great doctor, but you will open clinics. You will have many practices, not just one practice, but you will have many practices. You will be a doctor, and they tell them that from the time they discover what that gift is in that child and start paying attention to it. They start investing in that child to pull out the potential of them being that great doctor with many practices. So they're creating wealth, but they're teaching their children early in life. See, my background is I wasn't taught any of that. My father was a sharecropper's son, and he got all the way to 6th grade. But my father was one who managed his money well because he had to, okay, to take care of his family. So he would buy property sometimes and invest in this or that. But he didn't understand annuities and 401ks and all these different things. He had no knowledge of these kinds of things. He had to stop his education because guess what? As a sharecropper son, what do? You've got to work in the field.
You got to work. That's right.
So you had to work. So your education is put on hold. Mom got all the way to 12th grade. So guess what? Work was in their DNA, so to speak, but they didn't have that opportunity to get the education that they would have liked to have had because the opportunity they felt wasn't there for them. But yet I had a grandmother who would work in other people's homes for $12 a week. I didn't say $12 a day.
Wow.
Not even $12 an hour. $12 a week.
Wow.
She would be so exhausted when she came home. She could hardly take care of her own family. My mother would have to step in to try to help my grandmother with some younger siblings in order for them to keep going. But she did what she had to do because my grandmother was not an educated woman because she didn't have that opportunity.
Well, she was told from a very young age what her future would look like. There was a spell, right? Going back to kind of what we talked about early on in Street Resilience. There was a spell that was cast on your grandma, and it locked her into a future, and she didn't know that there was anything else that she could do, right?
Mm-hmm. So she did what she had to do. Let me share something with you. When you look at community, when you look at people in general, number one, if I have a job and a business, I'm good. I'm street resilience. I can make it. But if I don't have that job and I don't have a business where I'm making a living or an income, The next thing for me to fall back on is the system, the government system for welfare and other means to take care of my family. Then if I don't have the job, the business, or welfare dependent on the government, I can't get welfare because of certain things, then guess what I'm going to do? I will go underground and begin to do criminal activities and criminal things to make sure I have the money that I need to take care of myself or take care of my family. That is the bottom line.
And any human being
I saw
will
that
do that.
over and over in my childhood, growing up in my neighborhood outside of Baltimore. I saw that all the time. And it's people should never have to be in that situation. With the resources we have, no one should be in that situation.
But people will do
some
it. It's
people
natural.
live it every day.
I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't care who you are. Any human being, if they are put into, a survive or die situation, they will do what they have to do to survive.
And that's why I understand to an extent what our president is wanting to do and what some governors are wanting to do, and mayors and leaders across the country. They understand if we don't try to get things back to normal as quickly as we can. That's why I pray there is a cure, there is some kind of vaccine so that people can get back to what they do, normal routine, their jobs, all of that. But they know, too, there's an undercurrent or underlying circumstance that people will start dealing with, because guess what? If I don't have a job, I don't have money, and my babies are crying and they need something to eat, I'm going to do what I got to do. Some are saying this now. I will do what I have to do to make sure my children get what they need.
Yep.
And that's unfortunate, because some people will come out and do things that they normally would not do, but they do it out of fear. The spirit of fear is running rampant in this country, this nation, and all over the world.
Absolutely.
When people get in a state of fear, they would do things that they normally would not do, but it's a fear of not having enough resources. That's why we're running out of toilet paper. You run in the store. I went in the store one day, I couldn't find toilet paper.
The only way I see us really working through this fear is to really understand at what level we really are interconnected. We really are one. And that fear lowers when we come together. That fear gets more and more intense when we see each other as different. I have, you don't have, you're going to take something from me. That all of that increases fear. We have to start seeing a unity, that we are all tied together, because even the people who have the most, they're going to be in a better situation if the people who are struggling the most have access to basic resources, have access to resources, and have opportunities to grow and to advance their lives. Everybody wins, wherever you are on that spectrum, everybody wins if we can see that we're all interconnected. And this attitude of there's those people, I always tell I've gone 7 million miles around this earth. I've never met those people. I don't see our differences. People tell me there's all these differences between us, but going 7 million miles, I'm one of the few people who've literally met millions and millions of people. I've never met those people, and I don't see the differences. And so, one of the things that I hope is possibly a silver lining in this COVID crisis is we start seeing humanity as one. Finally, for maybe the first time, we can see we're all interconnected. If someone can sneeze on the other side of the world and that can impact the whole world, the world has changed. We're a very small world now. We've got to see that we're all dependent and interdependent on each other. And there's no such thing as those people.
But it goes back to the three things I pointed out: job, business. It's about security. It's about resources. It's about having what is needed to take care of yourself and your family. It shouldn't be about the haves and the have-nots, because guess what? It's growing. That divide or that gap is growing. Those that have and those that have not. And so we've got to look at those kinds of things and teach people. I used an example the other day, Christian, with Dave. I said there was a man, this is a true story. a convicted felon. While he was in prison, they didn't teach him how to bounce back or be resilient back on the streets with how to get a job. Because guess what? When you're a convicted felon, most people don't want to hire you. This man could have gone in a closet or began going back to the criminal activity. But he made a decision that I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do the best I can, get a broke down lawnmower, work on that lawnmower, and begin mowing yards. He went from mowing the yard. Nobody would give him a job now. He created his own job. See, we got to teach children how to create businesses. Find something that the community needs and give your services to it. And guess what? People will pay you. He began to mow yards, and then he got a riding lawnmower. He had so many yards that he began to take this money and opened up a daycare. He opened up multiple daycares. The man went from being a convicted felon with nothing and nobody giving him a job to now a millionaire, okay?
That's awesome.
He took his circumstances and turned it into something positive. Although, yeah, he was a convicted felon and still is. It's part of his record. But guess what? He was able to take the knowledge and use the skills that he had, what he knew he could do, and provide a service for people. And that service people paid for, and he created businesses as a result of that.
That is a beautiful thing. I mean, I think that is the dream. You know, that is the dream that we have for everybody who feels the pain of discrimination, who feels like they've been labeled, whether that's because of an action they've taken or whether that's because of their voice.
That's right. If they're getting the right information, if they're getting those words of affirmation, if they're being taught those things. As I said, some families teach their children early in life. But if I am part of a generation that has continually, generation after generation, understood nothing but poverty, understood nothing but welfare, understood nothing but mental anguish, wounds, living on the street. If that's all I know, then that's what I'm going to produce out of me because that's what I know. But when somebody can change or give me a reason to try, that's why I love Why Try. Give me a reason to try. Help me to understand that I can be resilient. Give me some affirmation and some positive feedback and other ideas on how I can do things. Then guess what? I can take that information and start applying it. And when I see one success, it motivates me to move to the next level of success. I've got to see at least one success in order to move to the next level of success. See, that's why some children, they look at athletes, they look at musicians, and they think, well, if I become a basketball player or a football player, I can make it. But the chances of them getting to that level, we all know, there's a small percentage that ever go to the NFL or become those great athletes or a singer, rapper, or a jazz artist. You know, what is the percentage of them making it to that level? We've got to help them not only dream about becoming those things.
Become an entrepreneur. I think entrepreneurship has got to grow in this country. We see the people who tend to be thriving the most, they're entrepreneurs. They're people who are in positions where they can make their own decision. They're empowered, just like the story you told, Miranda, is so powerful with that gentleman who was a felon there. But you have to specialize.
You know what's so interesting about that, Christian? And Miranda, you and I talked about this the other day. So when you're talking about someone specializing, a lot of times there's something unique about them. So for example, Miranda, your voice was unique. And I think for a number of years, you viewed that as a weakness, as something that was, you were bullied about it or you were mocked about it. But actually, it became one of your strengths. And I think for a lot of people who feel the pain of discrimination or who feel, a lot of people who could use street resilience, there's something unique or different about them. And maybe that's why they're being mocked or made fun of or discriminated against. And that could be a source of strength.
Well, I think so, because if I had been told earlier on that my voice was my gift, then perhaps I would have been further down the road. I believe I would have been than I am now. See, now I'm 63 years old. I wish I had known that when I was 12. I think I would have written books and probably been on a speaker's circuit somewhere, sharing my experiences, sharing what I know, helping other people become better speakers or communicators, or how to take knowledge and develop it. And, you know, it's those kinds of things that I feed on now. You know, helping other people develop or stand before groups of people and say, you can do this, you know, using what I have to share with other people to help them do even better in their areas of expertise. And now people are calling on me to speak on equity issues. And, you know, I never would have thought, but I saw it. I didn't know how it was going to happen. And I didn't dare share it with anybody in my family or any of my friends or people I was surrounded by, but out of that fear that they would make fun of it, because they were already making fun of me and bullying me because of my voice. And I didn't see it as an asset. I didn't see it as something I could use in the future to help somebody else. I really didn't see that. So part of our job is to help children understand that they're gifted to do something. That's why I'm writing a children's book, or I have written it. I'm trying to find an illustrator and a publisher, called You Have a Gift, GIFT. Letting every child know, regardless to your race, your ethnic background, your gender, what side of the track you've come from, you are gifted to do something powerful and significant in this world. And let nobody stop you, nobody hinder you, nobody tell you you can't do it despite where you've come from.
Well, you've been so generous with your time. I think that's the perfect note to leave us on. I think each of us has something unique about us. Oftentimes that can be something. The thing that makes us different is the thing that people mock us for, but it's also the thing that we could give to the world to make the world a better place and lift ourselves out of poverty and create a business out of. I think that all these ideas are connected together.
Well, it's been an honor. And if I have to say anything as we end this podcast, you know, learning to channel those emotions when we feel disrespected in a positive way rather than a negative way, to bounce back from what we're going through right now in this crisis. Showing love, showing respect, showing kindness, and guess what? Forgiveness. And that's one of the things I had to learn, forgiveness. Forgiving people that may have tried to stop me along the way, because there have been people along the way that tried to stand in the way to keep me from reaching the goals and doing the things that I need to do, but not focusing so much on the past. I can't look at my past and continue to move forward into the future. We've got to press on to what I call a higher calling. And sometimes you have to leave some people behind that try to stop you. You know, just like the gentleman I spoke about earlier when he was told he was a monkey and couldn't learn. This man became a best-selling author of 30-some-odd books. And the very teacher that told him he was a monkey ended up standing in a long line to get one of his books just to get his autograph on the book. We have to forgive one another as well as care for one another. I can't keep thinking about what happened to me. That will hinder me from moving forward. You can't look in the rearview mirror and not run over something and cause something destructive if I keep looking back. So I have to keep looking to the future. And I believe this has positioned us to look in the future, to do things more equitably, to help children learn at a level that they can learn. It's just that they need lack of exposure to certain things. We need resources put in the right place. We can't give everybody a size 11 shoe and expect that shoe to fit. We've got to find ways to reach children earlier in life, teach our help our teachers with professional development through this, helping them to learn digitally, to help with learning, children learning digitally. Some teachers are in that position where they've never been had to deal with this before. This is a hand they have not had to deal with before. So we've got to create professional development to help our teachers in the future, because there's a chance that this could happen again. But I also see it as an opportunity to use digital, the digital learning aspect to help those children that have fallen behind, those children that drop out of school, that can still learn, but they may not be able to learn in a regular school environment. This is an opportunity to develop something in that area, to say, look, we understand you want to drop out, don't drop out. We're going to develop a plan where you can digitally learn and graduate and still be successful in life. So with that being said, this is great.
Amen.
I appreciate it so very much. You guys are doing a great job.
Well, Miranda, your voice, I have to just say, ironically enough, it is your voice that we just love hearing so much. You imbue your voice. It's this deep, resonant, beautiful thing. And it's kind of a representation of your soul. You have the soul of a champion, and it has been a real honor to have you on our show today. We just love you so much, Miranda. Thank you for spending some time with us. And, thank you for imparting of your wisdom and knowledge. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, how can they do that, Miranda?
I'm on Twitter.
What's your Twitter handle? Tell us your Twitter handle.
Well, my thing is, if they just type in my name, it will pop up. There's not too many of me out there.
Well, I think this is going to evolve over the next 2 years. Buckle up for this ride. It's going to be an interesting 2 years.
I believe it, and equity, that topic, I can go on and on and on and on.
It just became 100 times more important.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So, equity became very important. Hey, love you. Bye-bye. See you. See you, my friend.
Y'all know I'll keep going if you keep you keep talking to me. You keep talking to me, I'll keep talking.
Love you, Miranda.
Right,
thank you
so much.
It was incredible. Thank you.
See you, my friend.
Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.